Fear is sneaky. It doesn't just show up with this loud warning sign. I think a lot of us think it will, but it kind of does this whispering. There's these doubts, this hesitation gets created, and it convinces us to play it safe. Can you relate to this? I mean, it really tries to keep us from getting the results, especially if we do play it safe. You know, fear has this sneaky way of creeping in and shutting down progress before it even starts. I've had this happen over and over again, and it's not just the hesitation or just the second guessing. It's like this mental roadblock that stops. It was stopping me. It may stop you. It stops people from taking action. So when it comes to health, fitness, other things, goals that you want to achieve, especially if they're kind of a bit intimidating at first, fear will show up in a lot of different ways. I'm going to help you dispel some of this today, because there's different things like fear of failing, fear of looking foolish, fear of change, even fear of success. Can you believe that? People actually fear success? Yeah, I was in that boat many times. Sometimes it still sneaks up. And it's really easy to get stuck in this cycle where you want results, but you hold yourself back. And the motivation that you once had, well, it's there one moment, right? And then suddenly doubt takes over. Now, I've talked about motivation and relying on that stuff in the past couple podcasts here, especially if you're catching it over on the audio version. But things like, and here's where I was at, especially when I was like, you know what, I'm going to commit. I was committing to like a 3-month plan. And I'd never done that before with a fitness goal. You know, I was always hoping it would just stick. And I'm like, I'm going to commit to this 3-month plan. And immediately it's, what if it doesn't work? What if I can't stick with it? What if I put in all this time and effort and nothing changes? Those thoughts lead to inaction. You probably can relate, and you know that's where people get stuck. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we do that, head over to talktoperry.com. That's where it's at, because I want to help you keep your energy high. I want to help you break past the fear, break through, as a mentor of mine, Bob Proctor, called it, the terror barrier. Help you break through that so that you can reach all of your goals, because I want to help you keep that energy high, reclaim your power. And we do that in 15 minutes over at talktoperry.com. I'm going to put it in the lower third right there if you're watching on the video version. All right, let's talk about fear. You know, it's built to keep us stuck. Now, I think a lot of times we can think of fear as a sign of growth, like, oh, we break through this little barrier of fear, we're going to be able to break to the other side and have many great things happen. A lot of times people just get to that point and then back away. Your brain is wired to resist. One of my friends, Josh Coates, would often say, you know, our brains are constantly on the lookout to justify our fears, worries, and doubts. Now, gosh, you know, I want to rewire that, right? So even if you need, you need to do something. I know I need to lose weight. I know I need to earn an extra income. I know, whatever that is. Your mind's going to try and figure out a way to convince you otherwise. And it will show you evidence all around you of why it won't work. See, fear creates excuses that sound reasonable. You know, that's why I tell people, it's like, oh, you're probably rationalizing or reasoning or negotiating with yourself because, that sounds reasonable. I should probably hold off on doing this. I'll start next week when things calm down. I'll just, I need to do some research first on this. That's a big one. Maybe this isn't the right time for me. You see, always something happens and gets in the way. We can convince ourselves with that. They are not logical reasons. They're just fear, disguising itself as logic. So when you start to challenge those thoughts, when you really become aware, and so if anything, out of this podcast, make this an awareness moment for you. When you start to challenge those thoughts, you realize they're actually not true, right? So here's the way it disguises itself, especially it slows the progress, especially if you're starting like fitness, but you could probably insert this into any other goal that you're wanting to go after. Fear of failure, people are afraid that it's like, gosh, I won't succeed. What if I put in all this time and effort? So if we avoid it, we can let ourselves off the hook. But you'll never know what you're capable of if you don't ever start, right? And sometimes we'll dabble. We'll start a little bit, but we're waiting for the fear to kick in and get us off the hook. Fear of judgment is another one. I had that when I was first starting because I didn't want to, I was doing something that was a little bit different than my typical exercise routine, and I didn't want to be judged by the family members, But a lot of times that's why people will stay away from a gym or trying something new. They assume everybody's watching and is going to criticize them. And that's what we're doing in our head. We're criticizing ourselves, right? And so that's another one. Fear of commitment. That's another big one. It's like, we're on this thing. And this is where the entire fitness industry is really built off of a lot of this, is this fear of commitment of I'm on this thing until I'm off this thing. So we'll do, let's say, like I was doing a 3-month plan. By day 30, we're already trying to get our exit plan. When am I going to sabotage myself? When am I going to do this? And we start to rationalize and reason why it's not working. Or if I commit to this, what's going to happen? And that leads to another fear of change. Even if somebody's unhappy about how they feel, change is going to make a little bit more uncomfortable. How will other people perceive me if I change? And so it takes effort to shift habits, and really the mind likes to get in there and resist. And the longer the fear runs the show, well, the longer it takes for our goals and our results to stay out of reach. And then we can justify, well, I tried that thing and it didn't work. And really, we haven't turned it in toward ourselves. We haven't gotten radically honest with ourselves. We haven't dealt with the things and got radically honest with what we're putting up as barriers. We're justifying and putting the blame on something else so we don't have to take the responsibility. I know that was happening for me. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to simplify my process, and I'm just going to show up every day. And there's going to be moments where I don't want to, and I'm still going to do it. And I'm not going to like it. But I'm still, because I needed to break through that terror barrier over and over and over again. So how do we push through that? Well, one is to recognize fear, right? So is there to try to convince yourself. So become aware of that. Call yourself out on it. When you're starting to come up with an excuse or you're rationalizing, you know what? Challenge it. Where's this coming from? Is this actually true? For the longest time, I bought into, well, I'm about to turn 40. Now, this is years ago, but it's like, I'm about to turn 40. It's really too late in life for me to get in shape. And, it's just a silly idea. Who says? Who made that up? I was making up the story based on old stories of how I grew up and seeing evidence of unhealthy habits of friends, family, coworkers, so I could get behind that. But it wasn't true. Lower the resistance to fear, right? Big goals, they sometimes feel overwhelming, but instead of, this was a big thing. I would say, oh gosh, it's going to be three months of my time to go through this. I would just be like, no, it's not that, because I want to have a lifetime of healthy habits. Just do today. And I just committed to just 15 minutes. Now, I had to show up, and the workouts were actually 30 minutes long, but my commitment was at least you've got to start. You've got to make it at least 15 minutes, and then you can do whatever. And almost every time after I got the 15 minutes going, I finished the other 15 minutes. So, but it was that's how I got through the commitment stuff. I started to do the overhaul of my eating that way too. Taking action, no matter what, that breaks the cycle of hesitation. And we can get outside of our heads and just say, this is just part of my day. This is just part of my schedule. I show up no matter what. I'm a person of my word. Getting comfortable with the discomfort. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel, I felt out of shape, overwhelmed, stressed, you name it, unmotivated. And I showed up anyway. First workouts, those can be tough. They can be humbling. They can make you feel like, why did I let myself go for so long? Yet I don't want to feel like I'm so out of shape, and it was just the wildest thing, right? So decide then act. That's the art of decision making, right? The longer you wait, you're not making a decision, you're just procrastinating. So instead of debating if this is the right time, should I do things? You know what? It's like, just make a decision and go. Just do it. And I know it's easy to say, well, Perry, that's easy for you. No, it wasn't easy for me, but that's what worked. Made the commitment and went for it and just addressed these things I'm talking about on this podcast here, because motivation, it grows from action, not the other way around. If you've been catching the audio versions of my podcast, I've recently talked about the power of momentum here. And if you want to design a blueprint to take action, head over to talktoperry.com, because that's where I want to help you grow. And within 15 minutes, I can help you figure out what's going to be the best direction so you can get the biggest results. Talktoperry.com, that's talking to me, right? So fear doesn't go away on its own. It's going to keep showing up every time that you're trying to grow. So the key is to stop waiting for the right time, to stop waiting for confidence to kick in. You start taking action in spite of fear. That is huge. And progress starts the very moment that you stop letting fear decide what happens next and you start taking action. And the faster you move through it, the faster you're going to see the results. So just know you can choose to use your power and take control. Use these tips, or you can let the excuses, justifications, all the things built around fear control you and keep you from moving forward. It really boils down to deciding and committing. That's taking action on you and your goals and choosing to figure out new ways, looking at possibilities, learning and growing, and keep moving forward. You've got this, my friend. I'd love to hear your top takeaway from today. Drop those down in the comments. I promise I will reply. You absolutely rock, my friend. And as always, remember, it's never too late. We'll see you next week. That's another Power Blast podcast in the books. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, when you are ready to recharge your battery, make sure you go to talktoperry.com. That's talktoperry.com. That's Perry. And I want to listen. I want to hear, what's going on. I want to help you in that 15-minute call to recharge your battery and reclaim your power so that you're off and running and creating massive momentum toward your dream. Also, every day, I am delivering more motivation, support, tips, and strategies inside my free community with amazing people like yourself. And we are conquering the mindset and the fitness. I do 52 weeks of free training in there. Plus, I coach and I mentor people, as well as give you access to tons of resources and guides. It's called my Upside Down Fitness Community because we work on a lot of mindset stuff, the inside stuff. And we're a fun group of people striving to make healthier habits in this awesome chapter of life. So make sure you get in there. I promise you'll absolutely love it. Just head over to upsidedownfit.com and you can get into the group. And hey, you would be an awesome friend if you get over to iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave an honest rating and review for the Power Blast podcast. It helps awesome people like you find the show even faster, and that's who I'm looking for, awesome people like you. That's all I have for this week, my friend, and just to let you know, you absolutely rock. That's all I have for this week. I'll see you on the next Power Blast podcast, and always remember, it's never too late. We'll see you next week.